Welcome to AP Workshops, welcome to another one of our technical videos. This time we're going to be talking to Gary from Bridgestone Tyres about tyres. So welcome back to AP Workshops, welcome back to Gary from Bridgestone Tyres. Thanks for coming and spending some time with us, mate. I really appreciate it. First things first, this is not a sales pitch. So I asked a few tyre manufacturers if they'd come and help us out, and Gary basically kindly volunteered to come and talk to us. What we're going to do today is explain to you and use these questions. So these questions that we've asked on the Facebook page, I've rang people and asked common questions that we get asked on the phone to sort of see if we can't sort of take away some of the sort of, I don't know, what are the mysterious sort of myths and legends.
The myths and legends.
That tyres get.
You pub experts, etc.
That's it. So there's a lot of pub experts, there's a lot of Facebook experts that we've kind of all met along the way, I'm sure. But basically, these are questions that have been asked by guys that can get in touch with us here about tyres. So thanks very much for coming, mate. I really appreciate it. We have got a tyre there. One of the S22s, and this is kind of what all started it. And like I said, this isn't a sales pitch, but I kind of got on to basically it was Chris from
4014.
So Chris basically he dropped off his SP. He got a set of tyres down for us. I put them on and tried them, and I was like absolutely blown away. I was completely smashed by them. So so much so, if you go back and have a quick look, you can see that I kind of wrote a bit of a journal about my sort of trip with those particular tyres. I've always been a sort of Pirelli Metzler guy before, but once I got onto those, I was quite stunned by it. So look, thanks very much for coming to see us, mate. I really appreciate it. It's kind of, it does help, and hopefully what we're going to try and do is demystify some of the sort of myths and legends that come around with tyres. So these questions here that have been pre-organised by people, I'm going to put to you, if you don't mind. So Bridgestone Tyres, a little bit of history, please, man. Just fill us in on the kind of the brief overview.
Okay,
of what happened.
Founded 1931 in Japan by a guy called Shigeru Ishibashi. And for those that don't know, Ishibashi translates into English as Stone Bridge.
All right, okay.
So what he did, obviously for his fledgling company in 1931, he turned that round and he turned it into Bridgestone. And that's basically where the name Bridgestone comes from, and it's stuck ever since.
Right.
We're the largest tyre and rubber manufacturer in the world, because we don't just make tyres, we do motorcycle tyres, we do car, truck, agricultural, quarry, go-kart, aeroplane. We do bitumens, we do conveyor belts, we make suspension units for the big skyscrapers in Los Angeles. Because all those skyscrapers, the foundations are built on big rubber, so that they move and sway so they don't fall down in earthquakes and stuff like that. Yeah, so massive company. I think there's something around 160,000 employees globally. So it's a big company. You can imagine that wage bill. I never know mine. Could
you imagine the HR process involved in that one?
It's a big beast.
Good stuff.
And that's basically a little bit about Bridgestone. I mean, there's obviously a little bit more to it, but in a nutshell, that's us.
Brilliant, nice one. So into the kind of nitty gritty of it, and kind of this is the sort of question that people have kind of, they've dropped on us, and they're going, right, okay. So this question is decoding the meaning on the size of tyres. So when we get asked, or I get asked quite frequently on the telephone, what size tyres do you recommend for my bike? Okay, now we primarily deal with sort of like the V-twin and V4 product. So we ask them first what it is, what size tyre it is, but we give them a tyre size, but I don't think a lot of people understand quite what that means. So if we use an example of 195 55 17, which is probably a good RSV4 product.
Yeah, well, 180 55 17 and 190 50, 190 55, they're your three sort of most popular rears. 120 70 17 front.
It only seems to be one front, doesn't it?
Yeah, pretty much all bikes, other than adventure bikes, but sports bikes will have a 120 70 17 front with a variance of rears. This one, for example, is a 180 55. So what the 180 stands for is 180 millimeters in width. So from there to there. So the widest point to widest point. So it's not sidewall, because you'll see that the sidewall is generally pulled in. So you just get like it's a bit of a triangle. So it's there to there. 55 is the aspect ratio, so it's from there to there. So it's 55% of the width.
Oh, okay. So 180 width.
Yeah.
So 55 is 55% of that width. That width is the height in the sidewall.
Yeah, and then the 17 obviously is the diameter of the wheel in which it's fitting on. But it's not always that simple, because the tyre world, we're governed by a couple of governing bodies around the world. There's the European one, which is the ETRTO, which is the European Tyre and Rim Technical Organisation. There's one in America, and there's the JATMA one, Japanese Automobile Tyre Manufacturers Organisation or Association, whichever. But I mean, they're all pretty much the same. I mean, it's these governing bodies which set down what load, what speed, what size, that we as all tyre manufacturers, not just us, all tyre manufacturers and motorcycle manufacturers for that matter. So if you're producing a motorcycle with axle weights of a certain weight, you've got to have a tyre that will match the speed, but also more importantly the load of the motorcycle, especially when you've got a pillion on and things like that.
Yeah, makes sense.
But what also happens as well is that we as tyre manufacturers can make a tyre plus or minus 4% of the badge size.
Okay.
So even though it says 180, it might be 4% bigger. That's not a tolerance. I'll give you an example, like an OE tyre, for example. Suzuki a few years ago, when the GSX R600 came out, they had a 180, 55, 70 on the rear, but it was actually a 174. But they wanted the bike to be agile, they wanted it to turn, and they wanted it to be light. So of course, if you have a slightly smaller tyre, you've got less material, it's slightly lighter. But also because it's narrow, it will turn better. So that particular OE spec for that bike was, or they're all 174. So you'll find that people will want to fit a bigger tyre or fit a smaller tyre and stuff, but just be careful, because you might end up fitting a smaller tyre than what you've got, or a wider tyre than what you've got. So it is a little bit of a minefield. So the best way around it is literally speak to your tyre manufacturer. Ask them the questions that you're asking me, for example, and if somebody says, is it recommended? Yeah, it might be recommended, but it might do a slightly different job to what you're taking off. So just be careful.
Fantastic. So basically, width, aspect ratio is the size, okay, and 17 is the rim.
Yeah, and the diameter.
Perfect. Okay, the next question, if you don't mind me asking, dual compound tyres, construction, purpose, and how they're put together. So basically, we all hear about dual compound tyres. Now, what we've got effectively, from what I can think, and this is, you're going to educate me here, but basically there's a kind of a strip down the centre of the tyre which is slightly harder than it would be, or slightly softer on the side than it is in the centre. Is that a thing?
It is, yeah. This particular one is what we call a 5-layer compound. So this one has got hard, softer, and then softer again on this particular tyre, on the S22. But a normal dual compound, you're absolutely right, it's harder in the middle and softer on the edges. And the way that those are made, there's 3 ways of making it. When a tyre is made, it goes through what they call an extruding machine. So you can either have one piece of rubber that you put it in, it comes out the other side, it's flattened and it comes out as one piece. Or you can have one with 3 holes, and you put your softer in the outside, your harder in the middle, and it goes through the extruding machine, right? And it's sort of glued together in the machine, if you like, comes out as one piece. So you then, or the other way of doing it, which the old BT12SSs, for those older ones that are watching this, if you can, and the BT56SSs, etc., they were made in a way where it goes through a roller. So what happened is that the roller in the middle was slightly thicker than it was on the edges. And what happens is that the tighter knit you make that compound, the harder the compound becomes. So the molecules are squeezed together, or squashed together, if you like. So the middle is then harder than the edges. And then the third way of doing it is what we call cap and base. So you can have one compound straight from one side to the other, and then you stick the other compounds on the top. Bonded on either the other side. So there's sort of 3 main ways of doing it. The best way of doing it is through the extruding machine and having one piece that comes out that's soft on the edges, harder, however you want to do it. And of course, if you go into racing, they've got asymmetric, so they're soft on one side, so it could be soft on the right, could be soft on the left, and things like, depending on the track and stuff like that. But what we can do with tyres these days is quite amazing, to be honest.
So it's basically run through a flat machine and it's bonded and then cooked.
Yeah.
Wow.
Cured is the correct.
Sorry. Cured.
So there's the green tyre before it's got the markings on, and it just looks like a slick, and that's called a green tyre. Then it's put into a mould, cured, and pressed from the inside out with air into the mould, and it's cooked for a certain period, like putting a cake in the oven. That sort of thing.
Beautiful. Okay, thanks very much, mate. The next question that we've been asked is race tyres on the road. Is it a good idea? Come on, we've all done it. How many people do you know want to go and buy a set of scrubs?
We do. Well, they do. I mean, there's nothing. To Depends how you look at it. I mean, there's two ways looking at it. One, you think you've got more grip, but then that race tyre doesn't start working until it gets to 70, 80 degrees. So in the middle of summer, you might just get away with it, but then you've got to stop at traffic lights and things like that. So you've got more grip on this S22 at lower temperatures than you will on a race tyre. You also have to bear in mind as well that a lot of the race tyres now are coming through as V-rated. So this bike, for example, came with a 180/55/17, which is Z rated. It's actually illegal to downgrade a speed rating. So if you put a V rated, even though it's road legal, it's still road legal, but it's illegal to use it as such. So you need to check on the speed rating for a start. If it's Z rated, there's no law that says you can't run it.
So what we'll do right here then, because otherwise people could get confused, is we can cut to a little chart which will give us what ratings they are and what speed they're rated to. Okay, so we'll do that now. And we're back in the room. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate that.
So it depends, but in terms of the compound, like I say, you'll get more performance and grip out of a tyre designed for road use than you will from a tyre designed for race use.
Designed to heat
if
up
you were
at a lower
racing,
temperature.
would you use a road tyre?
No.
Exactly. So why use a race tyre on the road? You think you've got more grip, but in reality, unless you're riding extremely hard and you can keep those tyres hot,
the temperature as well, I suppose.
You're going to lose. You're not going to have as much grip.
Yeah. So the snottiest tyres for the road aren't necessarily the snottiest tyres out there.
And you also have to remember as well, these are designed, going back to the ETRTO thing, the European Tyre and Rim, these are designed to run with a certain load, with a certain pressure, which is, in this for example, would be 42 psi. A race tyre is designed to have 28 psi. It's not designed to have 42. So if you're then using it on the road, then you've got your cat's eyes, your potholes and everything else, and that carcass on the race tyre is going to be a lot softer, so it's going to be more susceptible to punctures and more susceptible to damage, which in short of x-raying it, you can't see it.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, mate. Nice one. So not so much these days, but I don't know, cast your mind back. You don't know, do these grey hairs below your true age, but cast your mind back. So not so much these days, but people used to fit fatter tyres to look good. Now I know this isn't a good idea, but can you explain why it isn't a good idea?
Well, again, in the ETRTO, we're stipulated what we can and can't fit. A 180 will have sort of an optimum size, which is a 5.5-inch rim. You can go up to a 6, you can probably go down to a 4.5. But the thing is, it's designed to fit on its optimum rim. So that's when you're going to get the best profile.
Right.
With the best profile and the best edge grip.
Yeah.
So if you put like a wide tyre on a smaller rim, all you're doing is pulling it in. So this part here becomes far more acute, and you actually lose grip.
So you put a fatter tyre on, you actually lose grip.
The contact patch can get smaller.
Yeah.
So you've got to be very, very careful. But again, going back to the plus or minus and what we can size, the example, the ZX12 was launched with a 200 section rear, right? The first 200 section rear ever, BT14, Bridgestone. It was actually a 194. Great marketing. First bike with the 200, but it was a BT14, just rebadged as a 200. Yeah. That's what it was. But it sold as a 200. So again, just be very, very careful that you might even you might put a wider one on, but it could in fact be narrower than the one you're taking off, but the badge says it's wider. So again, contact your manufacturer if you've chosen, or your preferred
great stuff,
supplier.
Mate. Absolutely love it. I love the fact that you're actually telling people, just get in touch with people, educate yourself into something.
Call the experts.
Wrong,
we know, we spend millions and millions every single year developing product on motorcycles with all the manufacturers, to get the best thing that works. You got to remember that when we put a tyre on, it's got to work globally, not just for an individual, not unlike, if you would in racing or something, when it used to be non-one make, we'd make tyres for individuals. But, for this, these tyres have got to work on this bike across the globe. So, I'd like to think we know what we're doing, really.
You'd hope so, by now. You've been doing it long enough.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Right then, okay, basically, track day pressures. So tyre pressures, again, I think, to be honest with you, are very, very personal. Some manufacturers recommend different tyre pressures for the same tyre but for different bikes. I've seen this happening before, but track day pressures, now basically it's a bit of a personal thing from what I can see, but I know lowering the tyre pressures is sort of a better idea, but can you kind of give us people a kind of a better idea about what the difference is? Because I know you're no slouch yourself when it comes to you've been out there and had a go, haven't you?
I have, I used to race. I retired at the end of last year, but
that's it. You've had a go.
But I also used to work in British Superbikes for 14 years and at the TT. I was David Jeffries' personal tyre technician for a number of years. Bless him.
Bless him.
And worked in MotoGP and worked in World Superbike. So again, it's sort of an area that I've been heavily involved with. So you're right, it is a personal thing. When we recommend a racing pressure for, let's say, a VO2 slick or an R11, whatever, or even for these, for example, it's only a starting point. We're all different weights. I'm like 19 stone, well, lost a bit, slightly under that now.
Well done.
But, there's people out there riding the same bike who are probably 12 stone. That suspension and tyre pressure is going to work completely differently. They may be a few seconds faster than me. I may be a few seconds faster than them. So that the way that the bike is working is different. So it's only a starting point. There's too low and there's too high, but there will be a parameter of where that tyre will work for any given person. So it's one of those things where if you do swap tyres, to go to a different brand, or you come over to Bridgestone or whatever you're doing, it's unlikely it's going to work immediately. You're going to need, because again, going back to the ETRTO, even though that's a 55% thing, but the tyre can actually be taller. We can have different overall diameters. So if you put a smaller diameter, that's going to drop the back end of the bike down. In theory, make the bike longer and make the bike turn in a different way to the tyre that you've taken off. Or in the other way, it could go the other way, it could be taller. It's going to be nose heavy. We've had this in racing where people have gone nose heavy because they've not changed the geometry of the bike and they keep going heavy into the front and keep losing the front. So, not all tyres are the same. So it's one of those things where it's sort of testing. And that's why we go testing, isn't it? MotoGP and Japan now, aren't they? They're testing. These are the things that they're testing for, the different profiles of tyres, the different suspensions, everything. It's not a given that it's going to work. It's a science. There's a science in the tyres, and there's a science, as front to back, top to bottom, there's a massive science in that motorcycle.
So where do we get the right information from for this? Go back to your manufacturers? Is it go to the tyre fitters on the side of the road?
Well, the thing is, the tyre fitters at the track, they are generally trained by us, by the manufacturer. There's Mark at Whole Beach Tyres. He's Bridgestone trained. He was trained by me in BSB a few years ago. So there's people like him that knows what he's talking about. But again, just go to the manufacturer. They will all they've all got a race department. We've all got one, so go to that person, the educated, knowledgeable person in there, speak to them.
Not the guy down the pub.
Not the guy down the pub. There's a lot of experience in the motorcycle world, and generally we're all open to picking the phone up or answering emails and saying, this is what you need to do. Do it. Bring them.
Certainly, mate. Every time I've spoken to people in the industry, like at the kind of manufacturers level, where they've certainly been affable, no question.
Yeah,
they've always been there to answer questions, no dramas. They're not unapproachable from what I've found.
And the other thing is as well, when you've got your warmers on, set your pressures when they're hot.
Yeah.
Go out, if it goes too high on your warmers, drop them down before you go out. And after your first session, don't get there. Oh, did you see that slide? Did you see that wheelie? Get your stands on, get your warmers on, and check your pressures. That's the first thing you should do after every single session.
Yeah.
And then drop it up, drop it down, or lift it, whatever you need to do, because that's the closest you're going to get, setting them hot to the actual operating temperature.
Yeah.
And if you keep checking them all the time, and as the temperature changes through the day, you can either raise or lower your pressures to suit what you're doing. Because if you go too low, it's going to cause wear issues. If you go too high, it's going to create wear issues as well.
Yeah, definitely. Brilliant.
That's amazing.
More question there, mate. Thanks very much. I think then we can fill up that cuppa for you. So basically, with this, this is another one of those pub talk things that's frustrated the hell out of me. So actually, this question is from me as it goes. Can you explain what cold tear is? What it looks like? I see a lot of posts on Facebook, and you see in the paddocks or in the where are you going? It's cold tear. I've seen a lot of wear on tyres in my years of doing this job, but you're the expert, so I'm coming to you. So what is cold tear and kind of what does it look like?
Yeah, cold tear is where you've got the carcass or the pressure too high on a cold day, for example. And then, so what happens is that as you're riding around, the rubber gets hot, but the carcass is still cold.
Right. And
the air is still cold. You've got to remember that when you put the warmers and everything on, you put them on not just to heat the external rubber bit, it's to also heat the air. It's also to heat the wheel, because if that's cold, all it does is drags the heat out of it. So all it's doing, what that does, is dragging the heat out of the air chamber, so therefore the carcass goes cold. But because you're riding round, this stays hot. But what does then is pulls it off in chunks, and it's normally around here, sort of on the drive area, rather than full lean.
Right. Okay.
It's on the, so it's a little bit further in. So if you went to hot tail, it'd be there. If you go to cold tail, it's a bit further in.
What we'll do is we'll get a picture then. If you get us a picture, we'll pop a picture in here on this particular section. So what actually cold tail looks like. So we'll put a picture in now. So that's what cold tail looks like.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And it's normally quite deep, and it's quite. You can sort of get your fingernails under it.
Right.
You know, it's basically pulling the compound off the carcass.
I see a lot. A lot of explanation for cold tail, and I don't see any kind of consistency for it. So I think there's a lot of confusion in that one, and I think it's really important that folk understand exactly what they're going to do.
Yeah.
We deal a lot with sports bikes, and that's how
it's important as well that you get your warmers on, and if you're going on a track day or you're racing, concentrate on your track day and your racing. Don't concentrate on your burgers and your butties and stuff in the morning. Concentrate on going on track. Concentrate on getting the bike set up, because the better you get the bike set up, the longer these will last. The better your bike will handle, and the more you'll save here. It's as simple as that. Plus, the more grip you'll get, so you can enjoy it more. So it's important you get everything set up, get it right, concentrate on getting it right. Go to the suspension specialist, go to the tyre specialist, go and speak to the people that know.
Awesome. Thanks, mate.
You're very welcome.
I really appreciate your time. Thank you very much. Thanks again to Gary from Bridgestone. Basically, I want to say thank you very much to Bridgestone Tyres for letting Gary come down here and spend some time with us. He didn't need to do that, but he absolutely stepped up and volunteered. So thank you very much.
It's a great coffee, Griff. That's what it is.
Thanks very much. So if you have got any questions, please don't hesitate. Drop a little question down below. If I can't answer, I'll certainly pass on the question to Gary. He'll sort that out for you, no problems. If you like what you see, don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Thank you so much for everything. If you want to get in touch with us here at AP Workshops, you can email us sales@apworkshops.co.uk, or you can go and have a look on our website, www.apworkshops.co.uk. I've had too much coffee, that's what it is. And just one final thank you very, very much to our sponsors, RST, Motul Oils and ARAI Helmets. Thank you so much. Without them, we couldn't do this, so thank you again. Take care, talk to you soon.